Move to resume.
Well, councillors, can I have someone to move to resume standing orders, please? Moved by Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor Wales. All in favour? Against, carried. Okay, we're up to number 9, Director of Finance and Organisation Development. Thank you, Steve. Kim, I'm sorry.
Reshuffling the...
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 9.1 and 9.2 are both for noting by Council. First one's to do with bank balances and reconciliation as at the end of November.
Moved.
Moved. Councillor Longmire, seconded by Councillor Thomas. All in favour? Against, carried.
9.2 is the schedule of investments as the 30th of November. Council's information.
Moved by Councillor Longley, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against, carried.
9.3, councillors from there, is an offer from members of the public to purchase land at Urena. The recommendation there is to accept that and follow through on the contract.
Moved by Councillor Longley, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Any questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against, carried.
9.4, councillors, is something I missed off the last council meeting report, where I neglected to have the request council to buy the council steel. So the report's to do with that for 65 Millthorpe Street, Oaklands. There is some feedback that I've had from the agent that the sale might not go through, but the resolution will finalise the issue to allow us to try and go back to contract.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Meagle. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against, carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, now we'll move on to item number 10, Director of Infrastructure and Environment Report. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 10.1 is building approvals for the month of November.
That is a recommendation there, moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Longley. Any questions or comments? Councillor Longley.
I note the food waste processing facility. Is that the one that's been causing some smell issues up in the industrial estate?
In here in Corowa?
Yes.
Probably was.
Any further comments? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against, carried.
Item 10.2 is development applications, or the sole development application.
Moved by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Any questions or comments, councillors? I'll put it. All in favour? Against, carried.
Item 10.3 is our companion animal management plan. As I've noted there, basically this was one that was adopted by Corowa Council in 2014, so it's been brought up to date with the current legislation and obviously rebadged as Federation Council, so there's a couple of these coming forward, but this one is on that, and just get it adopted and then go on exhibition. We had some reasonable feedback last time, so we expect we have the same this time. So
Excellent. Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Meagle. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against, carried.
Item 10.4, which is the local orders policy, goes hand in hand with the 10.3, which is the companion animal management plan. So again, it's to allow our staff something to fall back on when we get confronted with some of these issues.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Thomas. Any questions or comments, councillors? Not, I'll put it. All in favour? Against, carried.
And again, 10.5 is the roadside grazing applications, which we've had in place for some time, but I just wanted to get them endorsed so we can move forward for the future. And obviously with the way that the rural situation is at the moment, we'll get more and more applications for this type of thing.
Moved by Councillor Law, seconded by Councillor Thomas. Question, Councillor Thomas.
Just a
couple of questions in relation to the roadside grazing permit and the background information that was attached to this particular item. I just wanted to confirm whether the Federation Council were going to make a submission to the TSR statewide management plan. That's out on exhibition at the minute. It's actually due in on Friday, on the 21st. It's just that I noticed you mentioned TSRs and how they fit into the grazing permit. And also the other thing that wasn't mentioned in the document was with the grazing permits and if you're using TSRs, it's about the legality over lighting a campfire, and that hasn't been noted either.
We don't actually issue the permit.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know whether it was worthy to note anything
certainly
about
could
fire
be.
restrictions and lighting a fire and all those kind of things, because I just know that in the past that's been one of the technical features of Kivens Reserve, is having the 3 entities in there, because if you actually camped on the TSR, you actually legally can light a fire, but obviously with our Royal Fire Brigade services, sometimes it creates a few problems. But I just thought it would be worthy to note that maybe you should add that to your document.
We'll note that.
Thank you. And I can forward the information on to you about the TSR.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yep, no, you can.
Thank you. Councillor Longmire.
How are we situated in regard to obligation with the LLS service, you know, in regard to priority, say, on grazing of roadside opportunity, meaning that at the moment our road, on the big wide road, there's been a lot of cattle go through there under the watch of the LLS or the local ranger. How do we go in situations where farmers want to get some grazing on the road? Who has a call in the situation? The LLS, I understand.
Yeah.
We just endorse it, or
If the application comes to us, so we note it, we've got to actually tell LLS that we're happy for it to go ahead, unless there's some restriction we may have. I don't know what it'll be, but there could be noxious weeds there that we don't want disturbed or something. There could be an area that's prohibited for use, but generally we just then pass them on and they issue the permit, and it's up to them to administer that side of it.
So we have priority over yes or no in that regard, opportunity.
We have the opportunity to say no if we want to for some reason.
Yeah.
And then after that it just becomes up to them to issue the permit. And
So can I ask a question, who makes the assessment of yes or no?
Dave Capolino does most of them, as I understand it. So
Not the weeds inspector, perhaps?
no, Dave's mainly in charge of that. What happens right up north, I'm not 100% sure, to be quite honest. I don't know around Uranaway if there's another person up there that we use, or whether Dave just does them across the Shire. I'm not 100% sure on that, to be quite honest.
Just from memory, and I could be totally wrong here, but I thought it was the local land service, if there was a travelling stock route, would make the call as to who, and travelling stock would have the right of way on a travelling stock route. But permission would be required by LLS for a farmer to have some adjustment on that roadside.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it'd come under council's jurisdiction on a stock route.
No, but perhaps in what we're talking about, on roads that aren't travelling stock routes, the council has the same.
Okay.
We're more talking about permits on local roads and this sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's where we're going. We have the call on the local roads.
Yeah.
That's okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Did we move that recommendation?
Yeah.
Oh, we're at question time. Bronwyn, did you have anything further? That's fine, you can...
No.
You're right, okay. Any further councillors? If not, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against, carried.
Item 10.6 is the draft memorial and roadside tribute policy. We've been through this a number of times. We did advertise it. We did not, during the advertisement period, we didn't receive any submissions, but there has been one or two that have come in since then. What I'd like to do and what I would suggest, Mr Mayor, if we get a mover and seconder, that the recommendation there, I would like to split that into 2 resolutions. I think there is 2 parts of this resolution. One is that we adopt the policy, and the second one is that you deal with the issues that have happened in Lowe Street. So I'd like to, at the moment I've got it worded as 1 recommendation. I think it should be 2 recommendations. One to just adopt the policy, and secondly to deal with the issue that obviously started the instigated the policy in the first
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Steve, and if councillors are happy with that, we'll move on with the recommendation that council adopt the memorial and roadside tribute policy, and further that council requires... Is that right?
No, stop now and get a move and second it.
Yeah, you clear on it though?
Yep.
Okay, we've got a mover, Councillor Law, seconded Councillor Meagle.
So this is just on the policy.
Questions or comments? Nothing? Councillor Longley.
Comment regarding the 3-month period. I think, I've thought about it for a while, I don't believe we should give that grace. I think it's a blanket no from at any time, because the policy, and particularly with what happens in Howland anyway, is that if you've got this memorial outside your front fence somewhere in town, it's confronting. It's caused a lot of grief in the Howland community, school buses having to be relocated and so forth. I think the simplest way out is it's just a blanket rule no, and that's my opinion anyway.
So he's speaking against the motion.
And I'd like to move, when everyone's finished, for, what do you call it? Amendment.
Yep. Anyone for it?
Yeah, is there anyone for the motion, wants to speak for it? Against, council? We've got against, have we got a speaker for the motion at all, or maybe we can simply...
I'll just clarify, Mr Mayor, if I may, the process. So an amendment can't be a direct opposite, so but if the feel of the council is that they don't want to have even 3 months in an urban area, you'd be better off withdrawing that motion and then not adopting the policy, because the policy is only needed to control that. The policy only, as it was drafted, was to try and give some options at least around urban areas. So we've been pretty clear we're not going to go near the rural areas, other than just on a case by case if we do get complaints. But the policy was only looking towards giving some guidelines around the urban areas, so it's totally up to council, and that's fine. And if they want to do that, they're probably better off withdrawing that recommendation and not adopting a policy, which effectively means that we don't permit them in urban areas. I just think it'd be too confusing to try and amend a policy when it's only applied to urban areas anyway. So if it says we're not allowing any, you wouldn't have a policy at all.
So we're voting on the first recommendation in blue.
Or withdraw the motion.
Yeah, well, if we vote against it, it's withdrawn, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's probably a bit pointless to have all voting unanimously against it when, if that's the flavour, you can just, if the movement want to withdraw the motion, yep. And you could move a new one and say you don't support any, to make it very clear in a resolution, you could move a brand new motion to say that you don't support any new memorials in urban areas.
Or keep it simple and withdraw the motion.
Yep.
Okay, and that was moved and seconded by Councillor Meagle, so...
Just to make a note that they withdrew, that the motion was withdrawn.
It's the blue one, isn't it, that we're withdrawing?
No, the blue one was the original motion.
Yeah.
It was now split into the two underneath. Yeah.
That's
correct.
Well,
So the one that you're voting on now is to do with the policy only. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've withdrawn that.
Underneath that will be to deal with the issues related to how...
To the policy of lapses. Yeah. Yeah, it probably does need a new, just for clarity for the public, it needs a new resolution. We're thinking that this says that the council don't permit any new installations in urban areas of memorial tributes.
Have you moved by Councillor Longley, seconded by Councillor Law. Questions or comments, councillors?
You just wait for Rochelle to get the word so that no confusion. Yeah, we'll tidy that up, yes.
Question on the word new. Do we delete the word new? Any roadside memorials?
The only problem there is there is a number of them across the Shire already, so...
In the communities? In urban areas?
In urban areas, yeah.
There are?
Some anyway, yeah. So you'd have to, and it's pretty hard to make a policy retrospective, or a decision does create a lot of
policy can't be
And we
rectified.
can't ignore it. If there's issues, we still have to deal with them on a case by case, but it's probably a bit of a far reach. And I think urban areas, and given we won't have a policy, we need to define urban areas as being, even if it's in brackets, areas in 80k and under zones.
That's the point in the original policy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Watchurst, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just taking on board the changes and the motions that have been omitted. The tribute policy that was on display for 28 days,
Yeah.
that we're now approving, seems as though it's totally unnecessary to put it on display if we can go and delete or include with something that's now going to be a fairly major part of that policy.
So we haven't approved it though, we've just...
Well, but we've put it on display for 28 days. People have obviously had a look at it and they've accepted what we've had in the policy. There's been no objections or commendations, except for one that came in late. Now we're going to add something fairly major to that policy, and nobody's got a chance to say anything about it. I would have thought that if that was in there in the 28-day period, it would have created a hell of a lot of conjecture and comments. Instead, we put that being said, you put a basic policy out on anything, and then go, don't worry about it. We'll change it once the 28 days is over.
Yeah, it just might give
Just
some
seems a little bit funny.
context. Some context to it is, I suppose, the status quo is we don't have a policy at all, so technically we're not allowing any, unless they came to us as some sort of a approval, which I think most shires do. They don't have any type policy on it. So I get the issue, because we've now exhibited a policy with a statement that says that this is what our intention is, and now you're going back to the status quo, though. That's the only thing I could see where the council would be consistent in saying, well, they did put that out there. And the other question I have is how many people, it's all right to say that they agree because they didn't comment, but maybe people aren't even aware of it. They don't necessarily get to, this one does get a bit of attention, but because of the tragic circumstances, but even with that, we still didn't get any formal submissions in that period. So I guess all you're doing is going back to your status quo, if that's the way I see it at the moment. We've allowed them to happen, we haven't regulated them because we haven't been complained on them, and some just get taken down, I think, over time. And it's just one of those case-by-case ones. I think it's how most councils, we check with Albury because they've got a couple within their town, within their city, and I think they're a case-by-case, don't they, arrangement?
We do have an application record.
Yeah. A policy or not a policy?
Yeah, Councillor Watchurst.
That being said, it was interesting to say that Albury have got it on a case-by-case. I think when this argument came up originally, I did mention that couldn't we look at each case as it come up as case-by-case? Would that not be appropriate? I mean, you're not going to stop it. Put all the policy you like. You're not going to stop someone going and putting flowers and something where somebody's had an accident.
In town, yeah, we're stopping the memorials over there with fairly major crosses, and they're mowing the grass, they're spraying things on the verge of the road. They're annoying, they're offensive to the neighbours. It's created so much angst there. They've had to alter the bus routes because of what kids say as they go past the memorial. It's just grown.
Councillors, just like for probably my clarity as well, we're not putting a policy, we're not adopting a policy,
No.
so we've gone back to case by case.
Yes.
So therefore, that any existing, any future, that there is a situation that is caused, we can determine that individually, and that's where we're at. I think that's where everyone's comfortable at. Councillor Meagle, did you want to say something?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I'm a little confused because I thought that we were adopting a policy that said that we will not permit any new roadside memorials, so that we are being as clear and as definite in respect to the entire LGA as opposed to individual members that are affected, and trying to take the emotion somewhat out of it. It's not being disrespectful, it's just saying in respect of the whole community, we're not going to allow any new tributes. So I thought we were adopting that policy with that insertion, and if we have to advertise it for another 28 days, so be it. But at least we've A, been clear, and B, being fair to everybody in all circumstances.
Yes, and councillors, I think that's the part we're stuck with a bit. If we don't adopt a policy, that would leave us flexibility. We're not saying that, you know, it's been that way in the past, and it seems to be that way with most councils around our local government areas. If you do adopt a policy, you're saying, no, it's not happening.
Correct.
There could be circumstances where that's fine. I suppose we're sitting here talking about, because we're talking about a circumstance that got out of hand, out of control, which may not happen in the next 60, 70, 80 years. So do we need to be firm on a policy?
I might just clarify for Councillor Meagle's query there that the policy as exhibited, you might be on it, but I just weren't sure if you were, the policy as exhibited allowed for 3 months in urban, so that was where when Councillor Longley spoke against it and everyone else seemed to be against it, that's where the U-turn's happening.
So, Mr General Manager, if that's the case, we would have to put an amendment to that policy and have it re-advertised if we were going to adopt that policy?
As in a policy to not allow at all?
Correct.
Yes. And to not allow at all is, that's a stance, or you can go to where it was looking, where it's just application basis, so that if you had one come through and it was an application, i.e. like Albury must do, they can then consult the street, the obvious impacted ones, or ourselves as well as owners of the road reserve, and then come back to council probably and say, well, what do you want to do with this one? We wouldn't expect many, but if we do get them, the current thing would be that we'd have to present those each time.
My thoughts are that if the policy says no, then it says no, and regardless of the circumstances, and yes, it is a stance, but I believe that it is, and it's not meant to be intended to be disrespectful, it's just meant to be even, because as soon as you have a case-by-case scenario, someone has to make a decision, and then you get different parties arguing that you did it for this, you didn't do it for me, and we sit here arbitrating again over disgruntled ratepayer, 2 different areas of disgruntled ratepayers. So if the policy says no, then that's the bit that's upheld, and regardless of the circumstances, while it might be harsh, it's extremely fair, because we're not favouring any one party or another over any other party.
That's correct. So would you agree that the recommendation there now would take the place of a policy? I just wouldn't have thought we'd need a policy document when that in black and white says that we don't allow it. Like a resolution is law anyway of council, so or would you still want a policy to support that resolution? Because it's basically just saying that says we won't permit any new ones inside areas under 80.
I agree that it needs to be clearly stated that there are no memorials to be allowed. It doesn't just happen in Howling, it's happened in Corowa here. We had some young boys killed out near Councillor Longmire's farm, and they wanted to put a big rock and a memorial in Rowers Park for them, and for a couple of days they had a party, I suppose you'd call it, down there in memory of those boys, and made a mess. And if that memorial was there, it would continue on and on and on, and once a week or once a month or once a year they'd have their party down there. So it has to be clear and concise that there's no memorials inside the urban areas.
I believe that
Which, Councillor Meagle, I'll come back to that. Do you think that would be clear enough, a message, without adopting a policy?
It probably replaces the need for a policy, as the General Manager alluded to, yes, because there it is, and therefore, in terms, because I can just see at some stage a future council will be going through the same grief that we've gone through, trying to adjudge the value of arguments from 2 different parties, and not trying to abdicate that responsibility, but to minimise the risk and not having to take what is a very emotional situation for both parties. If you say no, then that's about as even as you can possibly be. So I'm happy to move that.
Ms Kay was just saying, the Director of Corporate Book, do we put a further in there about, just to make it really clear, about not in park, like it's in urban areas, but including parks and gardens and reserves?
Yeah, which is included in the policy. Yeah, I'd be happy to include that. Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so that's the motion we're talking about?
Yep.
In urban areas, including parks and gardens and reserves.
Is that moved by Longley?
Oh, we've got someone? Yep,
Councillor
that's
Longley?
fine. Yep.
I think Laura Meagler got
The
it.
clearer the better.
Oh, no, it's a new one, so was that Councillor Meagle and Law?
No, that,
What
No, it's
Longley
Councillor
and
Longley.
it's got Longley and Law there.
Longley and Law.
Well, we'll stick with that then.
Yeah.
Dodgy dough.
Okay, we clear on that?
Longley and Law.
Any further questions or comments? No?
Just one more.
We'll put it. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Steve's got one part, second part.
And the second part.
Now we have the second part.
Second part is to do, Mr Mayor, with the memorial that's in Low Street in Howlong, which we had recommended that we move that on the 18th of January next year, 2019.
Okay, so do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Longley. Questions or comments?
Yes.
Again, I'm not sure what discussions you've had with the grandparents in this case. Have you given them a date that's going to be removed by? January.
Yeah, so that's already occurred around asking that nothing be re-erected, but it isn't just obviously the family that are placing tribute. What's there at the moment is you know, a few small pots and some flowers, and we still receive complaints about that and the need for removal of that. But we have pulled up short of removing that at this stage, and the purpose of this resolution though is to remove everything from the site from the 18th.
But have we indicated
Yes.
the 18th of January?
So we've actually requested earlier than that, but we haven't enforced that yet.
Well, I'd like to, in that case, we haven't given them a guarantee, then I'd like to move alter that motion that be immediately removed.
Councillor Longley, I just a comment, not knowing in depth about the situation, but I understood that there was a period of time that council allowed them to have the memorabilia.
Well, that's what I was just asking.
In that period of time, somebody removed it. So they probably felt they didn't actually get that time period, like so it's been an argy-bargy situation. And I just thought by putting a date on it, that's it, okay, we've given you the time, hopefully everyone will respect that, and then it goes. Rather than, I just not take the side of any particular party, they were given their period and insulted in that time. So I think why council's looked at putting a date of the 18th on it, so you've had your period of grieving, and this is the day that it has to be removed. No arguments.
I just maybe comment there that the reason we picked January was to get rid of the Christmas period.
Yep.
We believe that if we moved on it now, this close to Christmas, I think you're going to have people who will want to go there over Christmas, which is part of that process that everybody's going through. So the reason we went for January was to say, let's do it after the Christmas period's over, people are going back to work, that sort of part of it might be over and it might settle down. The fear I have with this whole situation is that as soon as we try to really clean the site up completely, it's going to reappear in a lot worse form than it is now. So I think we're in a no-win situation, but just how we handle that is something we'll have to look for in the future.
I'll accept
But
that.
it's had a date put on it.
I'll accept that.
Councillor Wales.
Yes, I think the 18th would be a good idea because it'd be like a cooling off period over Festive season. You won't be like a big hammer going straight and get rid of it straight away.
Yeah.
That'd be a good idea.
Anything further? If not, councillors, I'll put it all in favour. Against? Carried.
Yeah, I'm back to Howlong again. Unformed road leases. This is a report that's been put up which indicates a number of leases that council's had there on basically unformed roads over a number of years. Background materials there, and we've just made some recommendations there that we don't continue with those leases and go forward from there. And whether we actually look at closing them, opening them, keep them open or something, might be a decision of the council further down the track.
Okay, do we have a mover? We've moved by Councillor Longley, seconded by Councillor Law. Any questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Longley.
Yes, just to comment on it, it's an expired lease that's been, no one's been paying any rent on for some period of time. The so-called tenants are using, putting hot wires around the neighbours' fences. Their horses are pushing the neighbours' fences over, so these animals are on council property inflicting damage to private property. So that's the right decision that has been brought up, and I fully support it.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, I'll put it all in favour. Against carried. Thanks, Mr Carmichael. Now we'll move on to item number 11, notice of motion. Question without notice, there be none. Reports from committees, none. Reports from Delegate Councillor Law.
And then Councillor.
Try and do it really quickly. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Council for allowing me to attend the Switch Library Conference in Coffs Harbour earlier this month. I can say that I have not been an avid library user over the years, although I have been a member of from time to time. This conference has certainly opened my eyes to the value of our libraries and those throughout the state. I can certainly appreciate the New South Wales Public Libraries Association's push for more and continued funding along with yearly indexation, and ask that my fellow councillors support this also. On Tuesday, before the Switch conference started in the afternoon, there was a mobile library conference. I was particularly interested in looking through the vehicles that were on display while Louise, our librarian, explained all of the functions and special facilities available to our residents in the smaller centres with no other library services. On Wednesday, the conference began in earnest. There were many guest speakers, although some were unable to join us due to the weather conditions in Sydney, and they spoke to the conference via video link. Firstly, we heard from Dallas Tout, New South Wales Public Library Association's president, and that along with the library and council colleagues, we are being inspired by library stories and encouraging each other to be all we can in our communities with our much limited budgets. We are doing just that with continued increases of program attendance, collection use and Wi-Fi sessions. Despite the horrific and shameful funding situations, our libraries are the community spaces building social and emotional health along with literacies of many other kinds within our communities. Dr. Valance of the State Library encouraged us to find ways of uniting all library voices to strengthen our links with the State Library and to be creative and daring in ways that we meet our community's needs. I'm hoping we may be lucky enough to have one of the State Library's special collections travelling around to call into Federation Council. Susan Benton, President and CEO of Urban Library Councils of the United States of America and Canada, spoke to us about the work that the Urban Library Council is doing, particularly in the areas of education and digital inclusion. Susan left us with a challenge. Are we learning as fast as the world is changing? And all of this was just before the first morning tea. There were 21 speakers in all, so it's a bit difficult for me to critique them all. But the one that was most impressive to me was Kate Roffey, Director, Deals, Investments and Major Projects, Wyndham City Council, Victoria. In her current role, Kate is focused on the growth of key international and national industry sectors and facilitating investment from both public and private entities via the creation of innovative deals that leverage value, capture concepts to fast-track delivery. Kate is also responsible for overseeing major projects in the area of transport, construction and mixed-use development. Prior to this role, Kate was the CEO of the Committee of Melbourne and successfully led a broad cross-section of Melbourne's most influential companies and institutions to develop initiatives and deliver outcomes to ensure Melbourne continues to grow as a prosperous, globally connected, while at the same time retaining its mantle as the world's most livable city. Before joining that committee, Kate held an executive position at Tennis Australia as manager of Melbourne Park Development, and was responsible for overseeing the master planning for this major redevelopment and negotiating $978 million funding deal for the state government. Kate is currently chair of Victorian Regional Channels Authority, Metro Trains Advisory Board and director of the Melbourne Football Club, and is a member for the Ministerial Freight Advisory Council, Ministerial Golf Strategy Task Force. Kate is also actively engaged as an independent expert, commentator and in the media, and is a regular guest of the ABC News Breakfast Show and Q&A. She has done some brilliant things for library services in the Wyndham Shire. I cannot leave out the session with the brilliant speaker Anne Doe, Vietnamese-born Australian author, comedian and artist. His story was one of surprise, inspiration as well as entertaining. His first book, The Happiest Refugee, won Australian Book of the Year, and each of his Weird Do children's book series have been national bestsellers. His life story, coming to Australia as a refugee and his climb to make himself the man he is today, is nothing short of incredible. So what did I learn from my 3.5 days conference? Libraries are not just book depositories. They are places of friendship, enrichment and learning, of arts and crafts, and for some, they are a safe haven, a refuge from a frightening and unfamiliar world. Our own library has programs like Tech Savvy Seniors to teach the basics in a structured way that learners want more. Technology evolves and learning needs to be continuous and varied. We need to help people discover, explore and be enriched by their online experiences. And to do this, we need to provide varied learning experiences in non-threatening, supportive and social environments. We also have authors' talks, children's reading times, craft programs for young and old, books in languages other than English for some of our newcomers to this country. I also learned that by being a member of our library, I can now download e-books or read audio or listen to audio books on my digital devices, which is now free and legal. Darren Rodrigo, another speaker, amazed me with the depth of research, hard work and knowledge that has gone into the Renew Our Libraries campaign. Our libraries are sacred places and we need to keep the momentum going, continuing to engage local supporters using the excellent material in the partner packs. I got the impression that they were hard work to produce, so let's make it worthwhile by getting all 128 councils on board, as well as all of us individuals, and have library stories shared from all of our libraries. The Renew Our Libraries campaign is ongoing. Let's keep the pressure on right up to the election and beyond. I believe our libraries are a credit to Federation Council, and every dollar spent in them is making them even more worthwhile facilities for our ratepayers and residents.
Excellent report, Chancellor. Thank you very much, and we have another one from Councillor Thomas.
I've actually got 6 items, but I'll be really brief.
That's fine, Councillor Thomas.
I actually had the ability to attend the Murrumbidgee Health AGM, which is really exciting because we actually had an address from our Cross-Border Commissioner, Mr. James McTavish, which is always really good to hear from him, considering that health actually has so many cross-border issues, so that was really good. I think the highlight for me was hearing from some of the presentations from right around our health district, and which would include, they talked about the local delivery program, and to think that there's 92 volunteers that engage 1,062 attendees per week in gentle exercise classes. And to further break that down, it's really good to see that from these attendees, that 32 are located in Wawela and 10 are located in Savernake over 4 classes, and to think that it's been delivered by 2 Federation councils, very volunteers from a volunteer base, which is exciting. Any questions from that point? No?
Yes, Councillor
Yep.
Regal, did you have a question? Oh,
okay.
Right.
The other point of call was that along with some other members of council, we also attended the Yarrawonga Wawela Tourism Board AGM. But I do feel that as we move on to 2019 with this particular board, that I feel that Federation Council actually has to have more input into the board. So I really am going to move a recommendation to that tourism board that we actually have a monthly item on that agenda. Because I feel for our $50,000 we're not getting our bang for our buck, so if anyone disagrees with me, please tell me now, but I would like to think that we could have some form of representation every month and talk to an excellent items coming from Federation. Any questions?
Yeah,
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
We've actually just prepared a, I guess, a memorandum of understanding with, when normally council provides funding to an external organisation with conditions around. So we've drafted up some key performance indicators which would be attached to that funding, and we've sent them to Royal Tourism just in draft, just as a heads up, and asked for some discussion early in January to put something in place so that we're really clear around obviously what's being achieved with the funding for the new commitment, which would be 1920. So not attached to this financial year, but we want to work through that. Yeah. So agree.
Thank you. The next item is the Riverina Rural Women's Dinner and Workshop, which was attended by 61 fabulous females in Urana, and it was an evening of fun, learning and networking. So thank you to Federation for supporting that. So that was really, really good because it was well received. The other point of call is that we went to Hallam on Sunday and to the Hallam Pony Club, and we were there for the opening of their permanent veranda, which was really great. And I think the highlight was that this was a great event, but it's a great venue for the kids, the horses, the spectators, because they have the most beautiful setting to enjoy their passion. So it's a lovely, lovely setting over there. So well done to all involved. The other 2 points are probably not really, haven't been attending on official, but council really need to know about them, is that here in Corowa there's a pilot project at the moment, and it's from the Murrumbidgee Primary Health Network, and it's to do with at-home palliative care program. Now, I'd just like to read a citation from the palliative care program. It's implementing a number of initiatives across the region to improve the capability of the community and service providers to provide at-home palliative care. Corowa Medical Centre is one of 5 practices across the Primary Health Network who are participating in the program as a multidisciplinary telehealth trial site. We are focusing our efforts on the enhancement of the choices available to patients, families and their caregivers requiring palliative care, incorporating physical, spiritual and psychological considerations, including bereavement. We are also looking at improving the early identification of patients who may benefit from palliative approach, whilst also improving the availability of support in after-hours settings. Now, you've got to remember with Corowa, there's 5 other sites in the Murrumbidgee Health Network. So Corowa is really unique because we're dealing with cross-border issues, so that actually adds another element to this particular trial. And to undertake this work, we are seeking the input from local community members, services and community organisations. We value the input of all stakeholders to ensure that we have a clear understanding of current service gaps and to support the generation of local solutions. So that's where they've invited Federation Council to come on board as a local stakeholder, and if we can have input into this particular care program while it's still in the trial, that it would be really good. So I've made them a suggestion and talked to Amber Harvey, hoping that maybe the ageing role could also become a stakeholder in this particular entity, and also I thought it would be a great opportunity for them to actually even maybe have a stand at the expo in Moella in February. Are there any questions?
No, there's got a comment from Chris.
Thank you very much for speaking to that. So just to note that the interagency council is the chairperson of the interagency group, and actually just this afternoon we have all of the local agencies across the council area meeting this afternoon to discuss the different initiatives that are happening and issues that there are, and where the idea of that is that we work together to support each other with to address community needs. So I'm sure this one will be have a good level of discussion, which would be great. Yeah.
And just to mix it up a little bit, I'd like to talk about the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. And just so you're all aware, because this is going to affect Federation Council, thanks to the Murray-Darling Basin Plan of 2012, one of the requirements was that the four water sharing plans for groundwater all now have to become one water sharing plan, and that is going to happen. It has to be rolled out by the 30th of June 2019. So just so you're aware, the Federation Council has 4 water sharing plans for groundwater, and it's designated as 015, which sits on the eastern side of the Rand Road, and then you've got 016, both shallow information onto our Mayor and our General Manager, because we could be getting questions about it, because there's going to be stakeholders who are going to be affected by these changes. Once again, thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? But thank you very much for another good report, Councillor. Well done. Councillor Wales, did you want to make a
I don't
comment?
expect to chat that either, Mark. I also attended the community conversation about Mulwala, our little usual down there with Councillor Thomas, and also the Mole Tourism in their AGM. And the highlight was it was a very good day at Howlong on Sunday, the playing club there. But I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to represent you at the CWA 90th birthday in the hall around here. I've never been to the hall before, and it was a good day, and there was people from all over the place, Indigo, and some good speakers, and they presented you with a glass of champagne when you went to the door. But I knocked that back, but I went back and got it. So, and also, this year the Cod Classic was the 18th year, so they invited council down to that, and we had a very good walk around with David Rose, who explained everything about the Cod Classic, how it operates and everything. And it was a very enjoyable day down there. A lot of people, I think about 3,000. But anyway,
Excellent.
that's all. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Councillor Wales? Is the Cod Classic growing? How's it comparing to?
Well, I believe it is, and Councillor Kennedy might be able to enlighten me, but I believe it is growing, and they got some good, they get about 7 boats to give away, and but, I believe
14 boats, wasn't it? Yeah, but this year the 100 boats they've given away. Yeah. This year was they've given away 100 fishing boats since it started. 100.
Oh yes, I will.
Yeah, they've got 7
Look at the day.
14, I think. This year, wasn't they? Had 7. They had 7. But they had other big major raffles, and yeah, I think they had 4,500 fishermen entered, I think, for the actual comp, and then not everyone comes to town to go in the comp either, so the town was booked out.
That's good.
Yeah, and every river bend.
Okay. Well, someone would like to move tonight these reports. Moved by Councillor Kennedy, I presume, and seconded by Councillor Meagle. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to correspondence requiring cancellation. First one, 14.1, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. So that's just a recommendation that Council recontribute $13,592.77 to RAMJO to build working capital for the new joint organisation. So that just came in the wash up of all the RAMROC accounts, and all councils are recommending that.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Meagle, seconded by Councillor Law. Any questions or comments? Councillor Thomas?
I'm just curious. I just want a clarification. When the New South Wales government was endorsing the aspects of JOs, did they give you a financial contribution to make those joint organisations happen? And the other point of call was, how much is the membership to be for a local government to be in a JO?
So the first one is that the government give each of the JOs $300,000 to start up for operational costs to start up, and then there's no more ongoing. So that'll be soaked up, but it is a generous contribution nevertheless. So there's money there for that, and the setting of the fees. I didn't go to that last meeting, but I went to one of the early meetings, probably the first meeting where they closed RAMROC and started RAMJO, and it will be a little bit more than we pay in RAMROC. There is an extra requirement around the executive officer role to be on a senior contract, and just a little bit more cost we see, and again I think it's another area where they're expecting the JO to be a lot more than what the ROC was, and that's not saying the ROC was anything wrong with it either, but I think they're really going to put a fair bit of emphasis through the JOs, and I think our fees will be increased a little bit. Kim, did you have a new figure on our RAMJO?
No, I didn't. So
yeah. It's in the order of 5,000 to 10,000 extra. That'd be the higher end of it, but some GMs actually made the comment that the budget putting together for 18-19 was pretty lean putting together. Ray Stubbs is doing a pretty good job of trying to keep it as low impact as possible, and also there was a bit of discussion even about in the early days of setting it up about who was actually in and out in those far western councils. So there was a little bit of movement there, but we figure it will be a little bit of $5,000 maybe increase per year. And they haven't quite announced their new exec officer yet either, so I think some of that work will probably come through. Yeah.
And there's the old REROC. I think Wagga still hasn't made a decision as to where they're going, so they are a subsidiary member to Canberra, a affiliated member with Canberra. But River and Water will probably get some affiliation with Ramjo as well. But of course, that was probably one of our original arguments, Councillor Thomas, that if it was a larger JO, that we could suck up some of these costs, the extra costs that are coming in. Yeah. Councillor Longway, did you want to comment? Did you? No. Sorry. Okay, so that's Ramjo. We need a mover and
I've got to move a second. Never seem to put.
Oh, we'll put it all in favour.
Yeah.
Against, carried. 14.2.
Yeah, 14.2 to 5 are all there, just a recommendation to move as a block. Just wanted to comment on ALGA, so that's the Australian Local Government Association, very strong, effective group. They spoke David O'Loughlin, their president, who is a very solid councillor from down South Australia. He spoke pretty well at the Albury LG conference about what they do, and that sort of goes towards what I spoke about earlier. Obviously they're representing the whole of the country in local government, so they're looking at the things like increasing our financial assistance grants and roads to recovery and those big federal government injections that we do get and we need more of. So I wouldn't rule out a report to February council meeting because we have to have our motions in before the end of March, so just flagging that we might and seeking any input into federal issues, be it Murray-Darling Basin, whatever we want to include, and that would, ALGA would be a bit like local government New South Wales. They'd feed those into probably combined motions, but I think there's nothing better than having your letterhead getting sent somewhere as well as through our groups as well, like Ramjo. So that one, nice letter there from the Cora RSL, congratulating and thanking council for the assistance in the Remembrance Day. The Ramjo minutes coming through, there's an extensive amount of work goes through Ramjo when you look at the minutes even of that meeting held on November, and strategically the biggest I guess focus through there was the adoption of the Statement of Regional Priorities, which was a project in itself, but that's really trying to get the alignment there between the region and the state to deliver on the things that the councils have as priorities. So, and the final one there is the Murray-Darling Association minutes of the meeting attended in Albury. So.
Okay, would someone like to move those recommendations? Moved by Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Any questions or comments? Councillor Thomas.
I just thought we should give opportunity for our General Manager to talk to the MDA meeting that he attended, if he was able to address that meeting. He wanted to speak.
At Drury?
No, the Murray-Darling Basin.
In Albury.
Yeah, so thanks Councillor Thomas. I went to that meeting in Albury, and the agenda item we put forward, which I understood was going to be also presented by Leeton Shire Council. Perhaps they'd be in a different zone, but the combined issue that the council and Leeton were pushing forward was about this Yanko Creek issue, and since that time we've met, as well as some councillors here attended out at Jerilderie for a crowd of over 300 or more attended the Civic Hall at Jerilderie to listen to the New South Wales Government and their proposed implementation of the two projects that contain a lot of sub-projects out there on that Yanko system. So that was a very, very passionate meeting attended by many obviously, and a lot of speakers. Government, it's hard to sort of read the direction of it all in some regards, but they've appointed at least David Leslie, who's a Deniliquin based New South Wales Government representative that people may know of, and he's going to be a primary point of call to go back through. I guess in this Murray-Darling Association meeting we put our case forward, and it's just really only been noted here in the minutes of the discussion that I put forward, which was also our letter, etc. So we're just hoping we can get a bit more attention through that process as well as attending further meetings, and we're going to follow up with a letter to the New South Wales Government about the Yanko Creek installation or proposed installation of the new regulated weir and some of the other projects within that system. They'll be certainly well up against it. It would be appearing that it's just suffering from a lack of trust. I think that's probably the main problem now with wanting to knock back an investment like that. Would seem a bit silly to not want a new weir for 40 or 50 million, but if you're not going to have any guarantee then of what sort of levels you might get through that, I can see why the public don't trust the current regulators. So that's probably where it's gone off track a lot in the 2 or 3 years between announcement and now it's all come to light. So there's a lot of fear out there, I would have thought. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, councillors? If not, I'll put it all in favour. Against, carried. Now,
12:30, good.
Okay, so we'll break for lunch. Would someone like to move to suspend standing orders, please? Moved by councillor Meagle, seconded by councillor Law. All in favour?